Hi, and welcome back to English 101 College Composition at Genesee Community College. We are in Module 11 today, which is the second module of the Research Process unit. In this module, we will look at using and citing sources from our research process. And this is Melissa Siska presenting to you. We will start with integrating source material. Bringing sources into the conversation. When you reference someone else's ideas, whether you use a direct quote, a summary, or a paraphrase, it's important to distinguish source material from your own ideas to explain how the cited source fits into the argument and to properly cite that material. Remember, we discussed how bringing in reliable sources as backup for our position on something will strengthen our side of the story. And that's why we want to bring these sources in. In bringing them in, you're going to want to transition into and introduce the source. You're going to want to use a signal phrase to actually move into the material from the source. You will want to provide a citation that can be easily connected to the full citation material in your bibliography or works cited list, works cited as MLA, or your reference page, which is going to be what we call it if we're using APA. And you are going to want to explain how this material fits into your argument. This method of source integration is sometimes called a source sandwich. So the first and most commonly recognized way of using a source within a paper to provide information or support an argument is quoting. Quoting are those phrases with those quotation marks around them that are a direct lift of words from a different source. But here's some things to keep in mind when we're quoting. Avoid using long quotations merely as space fillers. Well, we all know it's an attractive option when faced with a 10, 20-page paper. The overuse of long quotations gives the reader the impression that you're not thinking for yourself. They look like space fillers when you use a sentence or two of your own thoughts and then throw in a quote and then a sentence or two and throw in another quote. Don't do that. It undermines you as an authority. Also, don't use quotations to make your point for you. Readers should be able to skip the quotations in your paper and still understand all your main points. They want to know what you think, and the quotations are only supposed to support and enhance your point, not make it for you. Also remember to use only as much of the quotation as you need. Excerpts from the source material and leave out any unnecessary words. You don't need to quote an entire sentence if really all you're interested in is a specific 4 or 5 words. You don't need to quote an entire paragraph if you're only interested in a specific sentence or two, even if they do not come immediately sequential to each other. That is okay. When introducing direct quotations, try to use a variety of verbs in your signal phrases. Don't always rely on stock verbs such as states, as in Mr. Smith states, or says, as in John says. Think for a little while about the purpose of your quotation and then choose a context-appropriate verb. Even things such as, it was noted by Dr. Smith, and then you could start your quote. Another good place to get ideas for how to signal phrase your quotations that are coming up is right online. Go ahead and Google it and see what kind of ideas other people have. That gets your brain going into finding the correct, most appropriate, and most you signal phrases in your writing. Finally, don't use only direct quotations, please. Try using paraphrases in addition to direct quotations. To the reader, the effective use of paraphrases indicates that you took the time to think about the meaning behind the quotation's words. You didn't simply lift a quote because it looked like it kind of fit and it took up space. It shows higher level thinking, which only makes you a stronger authority as the author. So what is paraphrasing? In a paraphrase, you use your own words to explain the specific points another writer has made. If the original text refers to an idea or term discussed earlier in the text, your paraphrase may also need to explain or define that idea. You may also need to interpret specific terms made by the writer in the original text. For example, if you're reading Harry Potter and writing about him in the books by J.K. Rowling's, your reader may not necessarily know what a muggle is. That is a specific term you would need to paraphrase and explain because your reader wouldn't understand if they've never been exposed to such material. Be very careful when paraphrasing to not add information or commentary that isn't part of the original passage in the midst of your paraphrase. Okay, you do not want to add or take away from the meaning of the passage that you are paraphrasing. You may add your comments and analysis, but save it for after you have finished the paraphrase. Just like if you were putting in a direct quote, you would save your comments and analysis for after the end of the quotation. Save your input for after the end of the paraphrase. And be careful to remember that your paraphrase still requires a citation. And we will discuss in-text citations in a little bit here. Even when you use someone else's ideas, but put those ideas into your own words, you still need to acknowledge the source of those ideas. It wouldn't be cool if your classmate took your paper, grabbed some of your ideas, changed them up a little, the wording up a little bit, and submitted it as their own words without giving you credit. So we can't do that to other authors. And summarizing. Our final very popular way of pulling in information from sources is summarizing them. So how do we construct a summary? We decide what part of the source is most relevant to our argument. We pick out the most important sentences in that part of the source. In most cases, you'll focus on the main points. Paraphrase those sentences as we just discussed. If they include any important or memorable phrases, quote those into your paraphrase. List the paraphrase sentences in the order they occurred in the original text. They do not need to have occurred immediately one after the other, but keep the order the same as it was in the original text. Also, add any other information that readers might need to understand how paraphrase sentences connect to one another. So you can add in words and a little bit of explanatory commentary to link the ideas together in your summary. And revise a list so that it reads not like a list, but like a paragraph. Please do not just list out information. Okay, so now that we've gone through the basics of how to pull in and use information in a research document, I have a practice question for you. So now is that time that you are going to open up a Word document and start your lecture response. This first practice question that you're going to answer, what is the difference between a summary and a paraphrase? And state the similarities and differences in your own words. So pause the video to complete this question in a Word document now. Welcome back. And we are moving on. Just hang on to that Word document because there is another stop for you to respond before we're done with this lecture today. All right, synthesizing sources. Once you have analyzed the texts involved in your research and taken notes, once you have analyzed the texts involved in your research and taken notes, you must turn to the task of writing your essay. The goal here is not simply to summarize your findings. Critical writing requires that you communicate your analysis, synthesis, and evaluation of those findings to your audience. So you're not simply giving information, you're also sharing your educated thoughts and responses and evaluations of it. Okay, so use this list to help frame your purpose and to ensure that you are adopting the characteristics of a strong academic writer as you synthesize from various sources. Writers state the value of their work and announce their plan for their papers. This is done in your introduction. Writers adopt a voice of authority. I want you to practice being strong and authoritative in your writing. None of these hims, haws, hms, wells, buts, or well, this one said and that one said. That's great and that's awesome backup, but you are the primary authority on this paper. Whether you believe it or not, you better act like you are the end all be all of information for your given topic. Writers respond to what others have said about their topic. That means that you respond and rebuke to possible arguments against your topic. Writers acknowledge that others might disagree with the position they have taken. So you are respectful and acknowledge that others may not agree with you, but you are facing those responses head on and responding to them in your paper if and when you can. Writers use academic and discipline-specific vocabulary. That means higher level vocabulary, okay? Not a lot of varies, not a lot of buts, not a lot of tiny little low quality words like bad, new, old. We want higher level words and discipline specific vocabulary. So we talked about if we're responding and evaluating a J.K. Rowling novel, we would use the word muggle, where we would describe it, and then we would use it throughout the paper. Just like if you're writing about science or you have a medical paper, you're not going to call it a heart attack, you're going to call it a myocardial infarction, because that is discipline-specific vocabulary. Every discipline has their own set of vocabulary, so be sure to incorporate it if you are researching a specific discipline. Writers also emphasize evidence, often in tables, graphs, and images. So as well as direct word quotes, paraphrases, and summaries, you can also include tables, graphs, and images if they enhance and strengthen your argument or your message. And be sure to include an in-text citation for those things. Writing ethically. Super important. We've kind of been discussing it in the background all semester, but we're going to talk about it straight on here. What is academic integrity? Academic integrity is defined as the honest and responsible pursuit of scholarship, right? Because academic is scholarship or schoolwork, and integrity is honesty and responsibility combined together. So together, those make academic integrity. Academic integrity is characterized by completing exams and other academic assignments in an honest way, by presenting truthful and accurate data and research information in academic assignments, and by avoiding plagiarism by properly incorporating and acknowledging sources. So the opposite is academic dishonesty, and this is what we want to avoid. Okay, in all academic work, students are expected to submit materials that are their own and are to include attribution for any ideas or language that are not their own. Hence the citations and the time we're taking to learn how to use them. Examples of dishonest conduct include, but are not limited to, cheating, including giving and receiving information in exams, falsification of data, results, or sources, or lying, collusion, which is working with another person when independent work is assigned. Plagiarism, so directly copying someone else's work without giving them credit. And submitting the same paper or report for assignment in more than one course without permission. This is considered self-plagiarism. Some instructors will not allow you to submit a paper in the exact same form as it was, or a very, very similar form that you submitted to a different course. Some instructors will allow you to, but you need to ask them. How can you avoid academic dishonesty? Start your assignment early and stay on track with your due dates. Ask for help from your professors. Join a study group. Take careful notes as you do research and organize your sources. Work with a librarian or the writing center or tutoring center. And cite your sources and avoid plagiarism. Remember to prioritize your integrity. It is the only thing you can take with you everywhere and will always have with you as long as you don't break it. It is your responsibility as the student to avoid plagiarizing. As a scholar, you are expected to credit the sources of the ideas that you use in your own work. And as a college student, you are a scholar. So what exactly is plagiarism? You keep hearing everyone tell you to avoid it, not just me, but all your other instructors, your advisors, everyone. But what exactly is it? You can't avoid it if you don't know what it is, right? So what counts as plagiarism? Here are some examples. Submitting a paper written by someone else, using words and phrases from the source text and patching them together in new sentences without crediting the source, failing to acknowledge the source of words or information, not providing quotation marks around a direct quotation. This leads to the false assumption that the words are your own. No one knows you forgot the quotation marks but you. Borrowing the idea or opinion of someone else without giving that person credit. Restating or paraphrasing a passage without citing the original author. Or borrowing facts or statistics that are not common knowledge without proper acknowledgement. So basically, always give credit where credit is due, and you'll cover your butt when it comes to plagiarism. So in order to ensure that you are avoiding plagiarism, you need to cite your sources. The most essential way to avoid plagiarism is to properly cite your sources. To write a proper citation, we recommend following these steps, which will help you maintain accuracy and clarity in acknowledging sources. Step 1, choose your citation style. Please note here that oftentimes in college, your citation style is chosen for you. In your English classes, you will use MLA. In most science classes, they will request that you use APA. In some history classes, they will say you use Chicago. On occasion, you will have assignments that allow you to choose your citation style, and then you may pick whichever you are the most familiar with or the most comfortable with, or seems the least confusing to you. Step 2, create in-text citations. Make sure your in-text citations align with your citation style and use them. Step 3, determine the kind of source. So database, physical book, magazine, journal, op-ed piece, newspaper, internet encyclopedia. Okay, so determine the kind of source you're using. Step 4, study your style's rules for bibliographic citations. That's how you record your source. And then create your end citations for each of your sources. Those end citations are those detailed things that come at the very end of your paper. And they're called different things based on the style. They're either going to be works cited, reference page, or bibliography. Regardless of that, that is where you list your sources following their rules. Things that will always be included are authors, titles, dates of publication, page numbers, things like that, regardless of the style you are using to work with. Okay, the rules for how those things, what order they're listed in, and the punctuation within them vary between the citation styles. So what needs citing? The key to avoiding plagiarism is to make sure you give credit where credit is due. This may be credit for something somebody said, wrote, emailed, drew, or implied. You need to give credit to the creator for any of the following. Any words or ideas presented in a magazine, book, newspaper, song, TV program, movie, webpage, computer program, letter, advertisement, or any other medium you can think of. Information you gain through interviewing or conversing with another person face-to-face, over the phone, or in writing. Any media, including diagrams, illustrations, images, pictures, charts, audio, or video that you reprint, reuse, or report. Ultimately, you may cite any source of information you use in your paper that doesn't originate with you. You do not need to cite your own words, your own ideas, your own personal opinions. You do not need to cite common knowledge and common fact. Okay? So if it's just something that everybody kind of knows, like the sky is blue, the grass is green, there's 7 days in a week, you don't need to cite that. That is considered common knowledge or common fact. Okay. However, if you're having a conversation or an interview with someone and they share an opinion or a piece of information you did not previously know and you want to include that in your paper, you simply give them credit for it. Okay, so in a minute here, you're going to pause again. And you're going to go back to your Word document that you started at your previous practice question. And please add to your Word document your answers to the following. In your own words, what is plagiarism? What is academic integrity? And what are the ways you personally plan to avoid plagiarism and ensure your academic integrity? Now, I don't want you to rewrite the things that were just on these slides. I don't want you to rewind the video and copy things down. I want your own words, what you understand plagiarism to be, what you understand as academic integrity. And of everything we've reviewed and everything you have experienced in your academic career, how do you plan to avoid plagiarism and ensure your own academic integrity? Okay, pause the video and answer those questions now. Welcome back. Okay, we are almost done. We are going to discuss MLA and APA because APA is used quite frequently. You will not be using it in this class, but it's important that you have a baseline knowledge of them. I also want to tell you before we get into this, anytime you have anything that needs citations, the librarians and the writing tutor, Katie, are fantastic sources of information, and they will review your documentation, your citations, and your in-text citations if you ask them to. You can make an appointment with a librarian online at the library help desk, or you can physically walk into the library and they will review things for you. Okay? All right, MLA documentation. MLA style. Why cite? You'll recall from the previous reading that citing is important because citations help others find the information you used in your research paper. Citing your sources accurately helps establish the credibility of your research. Citations connect your work to the work of other scholars, which increases your authority. Citations are one way that scholars enter into a dialogue with each other. And citations are a way to honor and acknowledge the work of others who have made your own research possible. MLA style is one of the most common citation and formatting styles you will encounter in your academic career. The MLA, which stands for Modern Language Association, is an organization of language scholars and experts. The MLA format is typically used for writing in the humanities and is widely used in many high schools and introductory college classes, as well as scholarly books and professional journals. You do not need to remember what MLA stands for, but that's just for your knowledge base. If you are working on a paper that requires either MLA or APA, where would you find more information at your college? The answer is your library. Where does the library have, what does the library have for you for resources? A whole lot. Go check the GCC website. Check out those databases and help desks and all the tutorials. And what about the Writing Center? Yep, use them too. You can get to the Writing Center through TutorTrack at gcc.com and sign up with a tutor in the Writing Center. I have to tell you, Katie Laporta, her name is Catherine in tutoring, when you look for an appointment, is fantastic with citations. And what can you find on your college's website? Well, we've just gone over all of that, but please go check it, okay? MLA citations follow specific conventions that distinguish them from other styles, and you will be expected to reproduce these in your writings. In-text citations are also sometimes known as parenthetical citations because they are enclosed in parentheses. The author's last name and the page number from which the quotation or paraphrase is taken must appear in the parentheses at the end of the sentence. Look at our first example here. At the end of the day, Wilbur made in excess of $500,000. Parenthesis, marks 43, end parenthesis, period. Okay, that is a properly cited paraphrase, including a quotation from a source written by someone whose last name is Marks, and it was on page 43. All right. The other way to do this is to use a signal phrase, which we discussed earlier. And here's an example for you. According to Marks, comma, Wilbur made in excess of $500,000, parenthesis, 43, and a parenthesis, period. So we do not have the author's last name in the parenthetical in-text citation because we have it in the sentence. And so it is very clear where we found this information, but we still need to give the information as to the specific location within that source. And so the page number 43 is still listed in the parentheses. Okay, don't get freaked out by this page. Some people get a little intimidated by the chart on the right-hand side here. Don't. We have a 3-minute video in just a second here. I'm just going to go through real quick what some of these things are so you have a clue, and then we're going to watch the quick video that I think breaks it down into very easy to understand and very easy to accomplish steps and pieces, okay? Understand that this MLA is the citation style you will be using in English, and you will be submitting papers with this to me, okay? And all your other English classes. So please pay attention. Okay, page numbers. Just as the rest of your paper, the top of your page should retain the right justified header with your last name and the page number. That is a running header on the top right side of your page with your last name and your page number when you write a paper in MLA format. The title on the first line, the title of the page, quote, works cited, should appear centered and not italicized or bolded. And that occurs on your works cited page, obviously. At the very, very end of your page, that is always a separate paper. So when you are done typing your work, your paper, your writing, you will then put in a page break and then your works cited. So no matter what happens when you go back, edit, revise, change, it will always be on its own separate page at the end. Spacing, like the rest of your paper, on your works cited page, you will be double spaced, you will have 1-inch margins, and you will not put extra lines between the citations. It will also be 12-point font, either Times New Roman or Arial. Alphabetical order. Your sources have to be in alphabetical order on your works cited page. Starting on the next line after the page title, your references should be listed in alphabetical order by author's last name. Multiple sources by the same author should be listed chronologically by the year within the same group. If your reference has no author, use the title to alphabetize, leaving out any articles. For example, alphabetizing The Awakening under A, because the word the is an article, okay? Just like a sun rises, you would categorize that under S for sun rises because A is simply the article, okay? If you have two sources of the same last name before you break down to chronological dates, you will start with authors, the first letter of the author's first name. So if they have different first initials, that will determine the order. If they're exactly the same or it is the same author, it will then alphabetize by the title. MLA style. Okay, here is our quick video, and see how we put in the source location. This is not a full MLA citation, but this is sort of like a PowerPoint in-text citation, if you will.
MLA Style Guide was recently updated to meet the information needs present in the digital age. The new Style Guide features a universal set of guidelines that can be applied to any kind of work. It is important to ensure that you cite all the sources that you consult for your assignments. This includes sources that have been quoted, paraphrased, or summarized. If you didn't come up with the idea, it needs a citation. Citations are important because they ensure that you are properly attributing ideas to their creators. Citations also allow other people to access and evaluate the sources that you have consulted in your assignment. It is important to include both in-text citations as well as a works cited list. First, we will focus on how to create a works cited list, which will be at the end of your assignment. When thinking about how to cite sources in MLA format, the first things to consider are the core elements of the source. The core elements are author, title of source, title of container, other contributors, version, number, publisher, publication date, and location. So for example, if I'm referencing Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, I can find the following core elements. Different kinds of sources contain different kinds of information. The goal of MLA citations is to provide the reader with the most complete citation possible. It is okay if your source does not contain all of the core elements. The new edition of the MLA makes it easy to include the information that is available and exclude the information that is not. After you have listed your core elements, it is time to compile the core elements into a citation. A complete citation may look like the following. Notice that after each core element, there is either a period or a comma. For Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, our citation may look something like this. Author, title of source, other contributors, version, publisher, publication date, and location. Once you have finished creating a citation for all of your sources, they must be properly formatted. First, make sure that your list is presented in alphabetical order. Second, make sure that if the citation is more than one line, the second line has been indented 5 spaces from the left. Lastly, ensure that the entire list is double-spaced. In addition to works cited, your assignment must also contain in-text citations. In-text citations help the reader find the corresponding entry in the works cited list and the passage in that source. In MLA, in-text citations include the first entry in the works cited list, which is usually the author, and then a page number. Depending on your sentence structure, you can create an in-text citation in a few different ways. The author and the page number may be at the end of the passage, or author may be included in the sentence and the page number listed at the end of the passage. Need more help? McMaster Libraries has an MLA style guide that provides easy to understand step-by-step directions to creating citations. Or how about the Purdue Online Writing Lab MLA style guide? Prefer reading a hard copy? Come access the 8th edition of the MLA.
Okay, the Purdue Online Writing Lab, I strongly recommend. I use it all the time as a reference, and I hope that you look it up and also use it. All right, we're going to quickly cover APA documentation, and then we are done for today. Remember, APA we're going to cover because you are expected to use it in your science classes and perhaps other courses in college, but absolutely in your science classes, you're going to have some instructor requiring APA style. So we're going to discuss it quickly. Papers constructed according to APA, which means American Psychological Association guidelines, generally include the following elements: a title page, which is different than MLA, an abstract, which is something we do not have in MLA and is optional at this point with the latest updates. So you'll have to be sure to ask your instructor if they want an abstract. The body, subsections within your body with headings within your paper, tables and figures, references, which is also the title of that page at the end that's going to have all your citations listed out. And in most cases, each of these elements will begin on a separate page. And it's important to note that not all academic papers will include all of these elements. This is just an overview of possibilities. APA also uses in-text citations like MLA does, but slightly differently. APA citations follow specific conventions that distinguish them from other styles. In most cases, APA citations in your text will follow the guidelines illustrated below. If you have questions or need further instructions, you should visit the APA Style Guide, the Excelsior Online Writing Lab, the Purdue Online Writing Lab, which I strongly recommend, or you can also Google the APA Guide from Santa Fe College. Here is a little video on APA style, okay? It's gonna go over APA quickly and generally. You do not need to take specific notes unless you know you have a class that you require this for now. But you can always come back and watch this later. And remember that our librarians at GCC can help you with any style, MLA, APA, or Chicago.
When you use the information and perspectives you found in other sources, citations give credit to the ideas of others and make you a more credible author. They can also help your readers find the same sources again. Citation styles are guidelines and conventions that different disciplines follow to present writing and sources in a consistent way. APA style from the American Psychological Association is a common citation style used in the sciences and social sciences. There are two main components of a citation. First, when you reference another source, include an in-text citation in the body of your paper. In APA style, this citation includes the author's last name or organization, comma, and the year in parentheses. If there are more than 3 authors, include the first author's last name, then use the abbreviation.
Please note that APA uses the year, where MLA uses the page in their in-text citations.
Et al., which means and others. Then, include a complete citation in the reference list at the end of your paper. Your in-text and reference list citations should match. A reference list citation typically includes the author, the date, the title of the work, and the source, or information about where you can get it, including any URLs or other links. Each part is separated with a period. In the reference list, use a hanging indent and organize your references alphabetically by author's last name.
So please make a note that the reference pages, while each reference contains slightly different information from APA to MLA, even in Chicago, they are all listed in alphabetical order, A at the top, Z at the bottom, and all require hanging indents and double-spaced pages.
This helps your readers skim through the list to find the reference for an in-text citation. Reference list citations vary based on the type of source you're citing and the information available. Use the official style manual or an online citation guide to check which details about the source you should include. Let's take a look at one example. In college, you'll probably be citing a lot of academic journal articles. First, include the last names and initials of the authors. Use the ampersand sign for and before the last author. Then include the year the article was published in parentheses. Next, include the title of the article in sentence case. This means only the first word of the title and subtitle and any proper nouns are capitalized. After that, include the academic journal where the article was published, in italics. Academic journals publish collections of articles throughout the year. A journal might have a volume for each year and publish a new issue every few months. Separate the journal and the volume with a comma and italicize the volume number too. If there is an issue number, include that in parentheses, and add the page range. Finally, include the DOI, or Digital Object Identifier, if it's available. This is a direct link to the article on the publisher's site. Formatting citations and your paper can require some attention to detail. If you're not sure how to cite a source using APA style, ask a librarian.
Okay, so that covers our APA. So quick review for you. As you apply the knowledge you learned from this section, be sure to keep the following principles in mind. Determine whether paraphrasing, summarizing, or direct quotation works best for your purposes in each specific location when you're writing. Use signal phrases to clearly introduce source material. Make sure source material is integrated smoothly into your work and that your voice remains in control, that you remain the authority. Understand the context of your source material and be confident that it adds value. Don't use a quotation simply to add a source. Pay attention to detail with in-text citations and works cited or reference pages. Okay, that's it. Go ahead and submit your lecture response. It was quite short and concise this time. Write in Blackboard and then carry on with your to-do list. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.